Mhm.
So you wanted to have the laptop over there to just look up something or?
Mhm. it's not really simple.
Let's get away to take their seats. It's 8:30 and we call our meeting to order. We have a few things to lead off the meeting with the oath of office for our new regent. And some special recognition for an outgoing regent this morning. So let me start with those. And Stephen, you'll meet me up there. We'll do the oath of office. Assume everyone in the meeting knows Stephen Mayer, who's our new student regent. We're happy to have Stephen on board. Let me get the pen. Okay, Stephen, if you'll raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth, and be faithful and true to the Commonwealth of Kentucky, so long as you continue as a citizen thereof, and that you will faithfully execute to the best of your ability the office of member of the Board of Regents of Western Kentucky University, according to law? And do you further solemnly swear that since the adoption of the present Constitution, you, being a citizen of the state, have not fought a duel with deadly weapons within the state or out of it, nor have you sent or accepted a challenge to fight a duel with deadly weapons, nor have you acted as second in carrying a challenge, nor aided or assisted any person thus offended. So help you God. Tradition established under Dr. Ramstuhl's presidency is that regents are given a pin, which we all wear proudly, and signifies that you are or have been regents of this board. So you were properly adorned. Thank you. And don't lose it. Next order of business, Tamla, why don't you go on up? Someone wants to shed a tear, it's appropriate. Tamla Smith is ending her reign as staff regent, and Tamla, I think, has more degrees than anybody, maybe ever, who's been on the Board of Regents from Western Kentucky University. And Pamela has been here during these last several years when a lot of changes have occurred, and has been a stalwart in not only representing the staff, which you've done remarkably well. I know I've learned a lot from you, and I'm sure others would say the same. But I think the thing that we all appreciate so much is that Tamla has continued always to see the big picture and do what was best for the university. That's not always easy to balance all those things out. So we will miss her greatly. She's been a tremendous asset to our board and to the university. And we have a small token of our appreciation for that. So,
and can I say something?
Sure.
You know me, I'm not going to be quiet. I do want to say it's been a true honor and privilege to be on this board and to serve as the voice for the staff. Love the staff at WKU. When we held the elections recently, and someone asked, and I'm glad he asked that, staff are here in June, or why are y'all having elections in the summer? I'm like, we're here, and actually, if you think about it, staff are here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So to be able to represent a group that truly is the backbone of this university is an honor and a privilege I will never forget. But I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you to all of you. I look at this board and I'm just blown away with the caliber of the people who are on it. And the fact that you're here and you give so much time, and I see how much time you give to this. It's completely volunteer. You do it because you love WKU. And I just think y'all are amazing. And I thank you for allowing me to be able to serve with you and work with you. And we've had some good times.
We sure have. Sure have. George Nichols, who I understand could hear all of that, will soon become part of our meeting via the video. So, hello, George. I'll next ask Regent Higdon to read our roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Roll call. Chair Bell.
Present.
Regent Ertz.
Present.
Regent Higdon, present. Regent Henson.
Present.
Regent Johnson.
Here.
Regent McKinney. Here. Regent Mayer.
Present.
Regent Nichols.
George, can you hear us, George? We don't have the audio. We read your lips.
Good.
Okay, they said I'm unmuted now. I'm here.
Regent Porter.
Present.
Regent Ridley.
Present.
Regent Smith.
Present.
Mr. Chair, we have full attendance and definitely a quorum.
Thank you very much. The first item on the agenda is our Finance and Budget Committee. That's been at work for some time. And Mr. Johnson,
Thank you, Chair Bell. Well, this is the culmination of a lot of hard work that began some time ago. Concerted effort with the administration, talking to the budget council, talking to the university staff and faculty, and all the stakeholders involved. So this is one of the first steps we'll take as we go through the whole new system of budgeting for the university, not only this budget year, but for the years to come. In keeping with what I believe to be the proper procedure, all of you have received a copy of the budget and the explanation. So I will entertain a motion to approve the 2018-2019 budget.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Higdon. Do I have a second?
second.
Second by David. So I will turn it over to you, Ann, to make a presentation and open discussion on this subject.
I have a short presentation for you this morning. I'm not going to reiterate some of the major decision points that you weighed in on at your last meeting. I can tell you this is probably the longest budget of my life, but the outcome is positive, and I think you should be pleased with approving this budget. All right, Jeff. If anybody knows me, they know I'm tech challenged. Allow Assistant Vice President Kim Reed to help me. So, all right, the budget, $388,419,000. It's actually a reduction of about 6%. Most of that reduction is due to budgeting less in carry forward funds. I'll cover that point in a little bit. The unrestricted budget, educational and general, is 78% of the budget at over $304 million. The auxiliary budget accounts for 6% of the budget at $23 million, and then restricted funds account for 16% at $60 million. Projected revenue by source. Remember, this is a fiscal plan that says, what do we anticipate doing for the next 12 months? So we estimate our revenue and our expenses. The auxiliary enterprises, your first block of $23 million, includes the WKU store, Student Life Foundation reimbursement for housing, debt payment on Downing Student Union, and auxiliary revenue generated primarily to maintain Downing Student Union. The carry forward at 3.7 million is usually much larger. At this point, we're not budgeting carry forward for the divisions. The only carry forward we're budgeting is necessary to A, balance the budget, and B, two components of the current carry forward policy are that we allocate approximately $250,000 to IT for a capital project, and about $400,000, which is not much given the size of this infrastructure, to facilities management to make some improvements most likely by the end of the summer. So carry forward is usually in the 25 to 30 million range. This doesn't say that there won't be 25 million carry forward. We've chosen not to estimate it. We'll make decisions later. It means we do not have expenditure authority given by this board for any more than the 3.7 million. The majority of the carry forward, as you can imagine, falls in academic affairs. So if you had looked at the narrative of academic affairs, you would note a fairly significant drop, especially in operating. That's because we are not budgeting the one-time money. So we'll be back to you, what would that be, November, December meeting-ish, with more information as we see what the fall enrollment is, and we close out the fiscal year 18 and determine exactly what balances remain. Restricted funds, grants and contracts are about 17 million, or 28% of the total. Student financial assistance driven by Pell Grants, Keys money, CAP grants. So the federal and state funding falls in restricted funds, 72% of the number, and 60 million, a very significant source for students to be able to attend WKU. Self-generated. I'll give you a few examples. One would be the endowment income that is earned in the WKU Foundation that's brought over and reimburses the university for professorships. The self-generated revenue includes parking permits, Center for Gifted Studies, study abroad deposits, and athletics. Those are the largest components in self-generated. The state appropriation we have talked about as we had wrapped up the General Assembly. The 74 million represents 19% of our total budget. Significant. When we make budget decisions, we normally are looking at state appropriation and tuition and fees, which is 70% of our budget. So we're highly dependent on tuition and fees, which accounts for about 3/4 of the total of those two. How do we spend our money, or how do we plan to spend our money? We are heavily personnel driven. Personnel they'd like to say it's salaries, but guess what? It's salary and benefits. We've had a lot of conversations about the growth in retirement obligation. Our health insurance is in there. Retirement alone has increased 44% in 10 years. So we're budgeting almost 22 million just for this benefit alone. So 59% of our budget falls into personnel at 180 million. Some of the other slices of the pie are relatively small. 7.5 million for utilities, capital outlay, which is significantly low, but that's what we can afford right now. Allows for some repairs on facilities and equipment replacement at only 3 million. Operating expenses, in fact, are about 17% of the budget, and debt service at 14.7 million is approximately 5% of the amount we anticipate to spend next year. So how does the budget look by division? This division chart shows reorganizations, everything from international programs to enrollment management to information technology, all showing in their new homes effective July 1. Academic affairs, as you would anticipate, is approximately 50% of our unrestricted resources. If you follow down the lines past enrollment and student experience, there's a line, undistributed salary and benefits. This shows up in a broad category called university-wide. We broke out university-wide because we knew you would see how large it had grown. This is where we are temporarily budgeting the salary pool, 4% salary pool that will go in effect in January. This is also where we budget the undistributed fringe benefits, the retirement increase that we anticipate next year, the following year. And we place it in this. When you get the fiscal year 20 budget, those dollars will no longer show up in a significant pool centrally. They will be allocated across the university. Expenditure highlights. Faculty promotions and employee benefits, $6.3 million is the amount of money that we believe we have to budget for next year. $5 million is what we're setting aside for the 4% salary pool. Some small items that you can see in your executive summary of your budget show up in other operating, everything from licensure agreements to contractual obligations, but not a significant increase. Then institutional financial aid is projected to go up about $500,000. This totals about $12.5 million. As we discussed on our last meeting, we had to have a budget balancing strategy. We needed to have $27 million identified. What we did is went through an extensive process that reduced the division's budgets by $18.8 million, very specific reductions. We anticipate to capture $5.2 million in vacant positions by January in order to allow us to move forward with a fiscal 2020 budget. We will also need to replace about $3 million in one-time money that's necessary to balance our permanent expenses. This is all achievable when we bring you a budget for 2020. Capital budget. Can't say too much about the capital budget because the General Assembly did not approve any new projects for us, including the CPE request for a significant capital renewal pool that would have addressed the backlog of deferred maintenance. So what you see in the capital budget is authorization primarily to spend money if we in fact have it. It's a necessary process that the state approves all projects for over $1 million, and should we be able to identify funds, then we would proceed with some of these projects. You're familiar with the only state project we're wrapping up is the $8 million left on the science complex. The university funds includes approximately $38 million for the library commons. And then the private funding includes the renovation of the College Heights Foundation building and a potential project that may materialize for the clinical education complex. So our capital budget is $77 million. Looking forward. New budget model. This is our last budget that will be structured this way. We'll have numerous conversations before you have to approve the fiscal year 2020 budget to understand how the new model will work. We need to have the connection between the new strategic plan and the new budget model. Underway even now are extensive recruitment and retention initiatives that we believe will impact us in a very positive manner. And then on the downside, we still live with this dark cloud over us until we get resolution out of Frankfurt about the pension liability. But I believe what we're bringing to you today is a very positive budget that achieves financial stability. And we have initiatives underway that we should hopefully not have a winter or a spring quite like the one we just experienced, but was necessary in order to achieve that financial stability. May I answer any questions?
And I'll I've had a couple of people come to me beforehand, but I'm going to start with Freddie because he made the motion. So if you got questions, comments, and we'll keep this open as long as you want.
So really a comment is as much as a question. I want to reiterate how pleased I think all of us are with this year's budget process. Pleased with meeting the challenges, collaboration that took place amongst administration, board, staff, whatnot. Especially pleased that we were able to fulfill the challenge in meeting the staff and faculty raises. That is tremendous. And especially pleased that within all of this, we're still protecting our university, growing our university, and remaining a competitive institution among our sister institutions. So, many compliments. So my question turned into the comment, but I think that addresses what I would call a remarkable process. So thank you, Ann, and your staff, and my fellow board members. Thank you for all the collaboration and this.
Thank you.
John, you asked me next.
Yes, I did. A couple of things, a couple of observations, and then just a couple of comments. One observation is that we shouldn't pass by the tremendous amount of work that has gone in behind this pulling a rabbit out of a hat. We were surprised, unfortunately, by the state legislators not acting on many things that would advance education in this Commonwealth. One, of course, capital renewable projects, addressing the surprise and the pension fund issue. I don't see how anyone can budget a business and not know what's on the horizon or cannot plan. And now we have a mystery of whether we're going to be at a few $1 million in pension liabilities or several millions of dollars. And with that said, we all have a responsibility of contacting our legislators and saying, you need to wrap this up. You need to get some solidity, some solid plans around this so that people like ourselves that are acting in a fiduciary role for this university, we can plan as well. So that is my challenge to all of us. Secondly, I'd like to put in context what this budget is. We're talking about, and these are, we use the word million as if it's just kind of an everyday topic, but that's a lot of effort to find $1 million. And we have cut 27 million plus out of our budget. But this is a $388 million decision that we are making. And to put this in context, our regional areas, in our regional area, the county of Warren just passed their July the 1st budget, and it's in the Daily News. We could talk all day on free press, and I certainly respect this newspaper a tremendous amount, and thank God that we've got the free press in our country. But the fiscal court just passed, and their budget is 43 million. Once again, 388, county of Warren, 43. The city of Glasgow, Kentucky, $21 million. Once again, $21 million, 388. And the city of Bowling Green, 125 million, WKU 388 million. The largest of that group, of course, is the city of Bowling Green, which we are right in the middle of. So what I would say to all of us is let's remember that our fiduciary responsibilities are greater than our entire region. $388 million is probably one of the greatest economic engines in this area. And we should demand from our state, from our citizens, that we and other sister universities get the attention, because what we do builds economic development, it builds great citizens, and it gives our country what we should be. So with that, I want to say thank everyone that has put an effort into this tremendous task. And I think everyone's done a good job, and I'm in favor of this budget.
Just to add one thing, the city of Lexington was $341 million.
Once again,
I'll give you some kind of idea. I agree with that. Any other members of the committee want to make a comment on one or the other in the budget? Any other comments, questions? George?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just speak up just a little bit.
Okay, I appreciate having an opportunity to speak, and I'm sorry I'm not there. I'm in the great city of Cleveland, Ohio. I'd rather be in Bowling Green. But as a new regent, I'd just like to make a few comments. One is I, like everyone else, would like to commend the committee for the process. After hearing the stories about how this has been done in the past, the process we've gone through this year, I think, has been tremendous. It's been very transparent. The fact that the committee has reached out wanting input and everyone's had an opportunity to speak up, I think is critical. So I commend the group for that. I appreciate the fact that we've actually had a debate, not just you get to say something and then you go away, but we've actually had a good, robust debate about what is best for the university and how to put us on the right financial footing. I commend our new president and the team that he has for all the work that they've done behind the scenes to make sure we have the things that we do. I would say that when and Regent Ridley, I agree with everything you said about the power of the university and how we are an economic development engine for this region. But I also have to acknowledge that probably all of us are not happy with what we do have in the budget. We feel good about where we are given the challenges we face, but there's a lot of things we'd love to do different. And one thing that I want us to think about as we go forward, and it really does get down to what some may think is not even a rounding error, and that's really about the fees related to students. I know that was a sore spot for all of us in terms of our discussion, but as we look at this in totality and feel good about a $388 million budget, I also want us to continue to think going forward how we can do our best to limit the financial impact on our students as we go forward. Tuition is already challenging enough, but we want to make sure they're in a position to get a quality education, to be productive in our society, but also to limit as much as we can the actual liability and debt that they will take with them into their adult lives. So I want to thank the committee. I want to thank all the work that's gone into this. I feel good about it and fully support where we are, but I really do want us to keep in focus that this is really about the students. We're actually the support structure along with the faculty and staff of trying to create opportunity for people to continue to grow this great region. So thank you very much for letting me comment.
Thank you, George. Bill, anything? Klaus?
I support this budget and I feel really good that for a long time we finally have a significant raise pool to include merit. That hasn't happened in over a decade. And that's a big benefit to faculty and staff. There are a couple of points I'm concerned about. One of them, George already mentioned, that's fees. I asked Anne to give me a list of how much we actually collected in fees, and it's almost 18 million. So it's about close to 10% of the fee, of the 190 something million collected tuition fees. In that context, if we look at the tuition of the surrounding institutions, we used to be a really good bargain, and now we are just sort of competitive. And I think we have to be very careful what we ask students to pay going forward, because we are pricing people out of the market. My second point is, Anne mentioned the carry forward, which was essentially taken out of the budget. And the carry forward traditionally happens to be in academic affairs. And if you look at the details, you will see that in last year's budget, there was 27 million, which now is zero, okay? Academic affairs has always relied on these funds to be there, and it will need funds for the upcoming year. So these, the $3.5 million of Anne has identified as carry forward, that will be insufficient. To just give you an example of how this comes into play is we are monitoring enrollment, and some departments have contingency plans that if capacity is needed in classes, they will hire one-year instructors. And this is an ongoing process. And so even so in the budget, it is zero. some of this money will already be committed. And I'm sure we will eventually get a list of what funds will be committed. But academic affairs cannot do without some money. And so that's 27 million, which is set to zero. That is not good.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. Awesome job with the formation of the budget in the times that we're currently facing. I think that it did a great job addressing many different groups on campus and making a lot of people happy. But ultimately, I'm put on this board to represent the students for the university, and I have had an overwhelming amount of students email me, personal message me on social media. A lot of people were concerned when this was posted out because the two big hits that students are taking obviously are the 4% tuition increase and the course fees from $100 to $150 per credit hour for the online courses. And that's just really concerning to me because a lot of people said, well, this is going to cause me, if paying all these online course fees and stuff like that, to leave Western, go to community college, finish up my gen eds, and then come back to Western and complete my degree because it's a lot cheaper to go to community college. And that's upsetting to know that we're losing students for a little bit of time. Instead of keeping them here for 4 years, they're going to be here for 2 years to complete their coursework and just transfer in further courses. And I think that continuing forward the next year, we really need to try to look into what we are charging students, as a lot of people have already stated, and work harder to not put the complete financial burden on the students' backs to carry up the budget, because it makes a strong statement, especially the fact that we are a student-centered university. And I just think that we should take that into consideration when voting for this budget.
President Mooney, would you like to?
Yeah, I do. Thank you for the work of the staff that has been remarkable, not just on this budget, but during the course of the year. Affordability is always at the front of our minds when we assemble these budgets and think about the burden on students and families to pay for what is a remarkable experience. And looking at competitor institutions and our sister universities, sticker price is one thing, but we continue to focus on how do we generate discounts for the neediest of our students, attracting both talented students and students from other places. And also looking at our residence life and other student experiences and keeping the totality of the cost in comparison, certainly to other places in the state, affordable. So that's, I want to make that point. The other is that if you look at the complete number, the $27 million, it wouldn't have been possible to place the burden of that on the backs of students and their families. We have done about $5 million in asking them to share in the lift, and the rest we're doing through internal management. And so I appreciate the focus on tuition and student fees. I also wanted to thank the community that has stepped up and shared in the sacrifice to get us to a place where going forward we will have significant stability, the opportunity to plan and be thoughtful about where our budget is headed, and to share responsibility across the enterprise. And when you think about the new budget model that will run parallel in the coming year, that will go live in the fall of 2020, the shift in budgeting does several things. The first of which is it incentivizes and rewards the performance that we want, which is recruiting and retaining students. So it focuses dollars on where we want to focus our time, effort, and energies. The other thing it does, it empowers and devolves to deans the ability to manage fiscally their enterprises. And that also encourages innovation. And so while it was a challenging year, I think what it sets us up for is something remarkable. And so with that, I thank all the staff and Regents for your participation. And I'm really pleased in month 12 with where we are.
Hearing no further comments or questions, then I will call for a vote on the pending motion. All in favor of the motion approving the 2018-2019 operating budget, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion unanimously carries. That's it.
Thank you very much, Regent Johnson, and again, I express my gratitude, particularly to Gil for the tenacious work and effort he's put into this, along with the committee. Tough decisions. I would argue that Western Kentucky University still represents an excellent value, and I'm very pleased that we're able to reward our faculty and staff with this budget. Everything I read leads me to believe that bricks and mortar universities like ours will survive based on excellent faculty-student relationships, and I think that's where Western shines as a graduate of a larger R1 university. I can honestly say I don't think I knew anyone that got the personal attention as students that the students at Western Kentucky University did, and I think that's a real difference maker. And while that's not something you can quantitate, I think the quality that brings has great value. Next item concerns our nominating committee report. Regent Ridley is headed that up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The nominating committee, we made a decision to continue the process as we did last year. There were surveys requested of each individual regent on the board, sent out by our wonderful Julia McDonald, and it was confidential. It came back to me individually. I put the figures together of those that were interested. Personally, do not think it's right to ask someone to serve on a committee that they have no interest in. So therefore, it gave us the opportunity to give to the new chair data that will be able to be used for appointments on the committees of our board. It was interesting that as the information came back, and we didn't have 100% response by our date, but we did have a very good response. But it was interesting that the confidence in this board was evident in confidential responses that I received. I then in turn shared that with each member, Regent George Nichols, also Regent Pamela Smith, Dr. Smith, and told them, I asked them for their opinion of how they felt about the existing board and the board going forward. We came up, quite frankly, with a unanimous decision that we think that by the responses that we received and our individual charges to bring to this body a slate of officers, that the continuation of our chairman, Dr. Bale, our vice chairman, Regent Gil Johnson, and our secretary, Mr. Freddie Higdon, would be our recommendation unanimously for this board going forward to help Dr. Caboni and this university continue this good process of continuation of our momentum. And that's our recommendation. I don't know, is that a vote?
Yes. We need,
yes.
Yes.
You need to make that as a motion. Thank you very much. I will make that as a motion. Second. Oh, as the committee chairman, would I ask for a vote, or is it the chair? Oh, pardon me. All right. I'm already on limited 6 years. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes. Mr. Chairman, that is our slate of officers we recommend you for.
Any other items?
No.
Okay. Well, I personally appreciate the confidence that the nominating committee has made in all of us. And I think in looking over the last year, it's been tumultuous, it's been challenging, it's been busy, really busy. And we will soon gather to have a review of our president's first year, so that we can give him feedback and he can provide us with more feedback. And these are important times in higher education. We all realize there's many inflection points ahead and a lot of gravity with all these decisions that boards like ours are having to make in these times. So I also want to remind people that Regent Henson has graciously agreed to chair a bylaws committee. We every couple of years review bylaws and go over that, and that will be ongoing here in the very near future. At our meeting last month, we talked about potentially having a gathering sometime in July also to review the strategic plan and the ramifications of it. And so really probably within the next few days, we'll be throwing some dates out that we may be able to gather. Friday, July 20th has been mentioned, and we'll try to poll people and see what we can pull together for that. President Caboni, did you have any other comments that you wanted to make today? Or?
Just that I appreciate the culmination of the first year of my presidency. I'm thankful for the support and guidance of the board. First year sometimes is always the most difficult as you come to understand an institution. To do that along with some of the fiscal challenges we faced made for tremendous learning opportunities all across the board. And it's been enjoyable. It's been challenging. I'm pleased with where we've wound up. And I'm also pleased with the continuity that we'll have going into next year, particularly with the nominating committee's recommendation. Continuity, given the challenges we've had and the work that we've done, is important. And we'll just continue to put our shoulder into it and push the rock up the hill.
This last week or so has been a tough week for Western, and losing some very important individuals. I want to make mention of that. Two funerals going on later today, one for our golf coach, tragically killed in a bicycle accident, and then the loss of one of our most revered professors, Mary Ellen Miller, who penned the inauguration poem and was thrilled to have the role of University Poet Laureate. And I'm glad she was able to enjoy that this last year. We also lost someone I didn't personally know, but he was a photographer, very important community member. I think his name was Adams.
Paul Gray.
Paul Gray. So I want to make mention of that. We have on other business some dates for upcoming events. Our annual retreat will be August 2nd, followed by our third quarterly meeting on August 3rd. And then we will have our opening convocation August 24th. We look forward to that. That was a great beginning for President Caboni a year ago, and then we swing into all sorts of fall activities. So hopefully as many of us as possible can attend as many of those things as possible. Anyone else have anything they want to say?
Dr. Beam,
Yes,
I have a gift for you that I'd like you to open. Actually, it's a gift for the board.
Okay, I noticed this sitting there.
Isn't that cute wrapping paper?
What it was, it is. It's got a big red.
On sale by the ladies' golf team, just so you know.
Okay.
$10 a roll.
By the way, I opened Sports Illustrated magazine this past week and was surprised to see under their Apocalypse Now section, they had big red, and there's a suit in Italy that the courts had ruled could go forward involving something in Italy that had used a likeness, an eerie likeness of Big Red.
Chair Bale, thank you for the opportunity to address this pressing, important issue. Gabebo continues to be a thorn in the university side. We've been litigating and trying to get this back into court, and we're really pleased. The Italian justice system, which does not move with great alacrity, has ruled that we can continue with our case, and so Big Red versus Gabebo will continue in the Italian legal system. Maybe in 15 more years, we'll have some other ruling. So, wonderful.
I subscribe to Sports Illustrated because I like to have something mindless to read when I'm trying to go to sleep. That's all that.
Does it work? I did the red and white. See, I did everything red and white.
Well, red and white. Does it have Dr. Caboni's picture on it?
No.
I like Dr. Caboni, but. All right, what do we have here? Oh, a timer.
Yes, I found a red and white one, and I mean, I just had to go with it.
Every board should have a timer.
That's right. You were kind of getting sleepy last time.
I don't think your video would bear that out.
It's easy work too. I can work it because it's not technical.
In the absence of anything else, I would motion for adjournment. Motion by Regent Johnson. Second. All those in favor say aye. Stand adjourned. Thank you. See you, George.
Thank you all. You have a great day.
Wait, George.
Wait.
Take a little break. Let's take a 10-minute break.
George, we have committee meetings.
I'm not sure he's staying on for committees. Are you staying on for committees?
I actually have to go to some meetings.
Yeah.
Bye.
George.
Bye, George.
So it's.
She was all about having.
It is, it's just like that.
Okay, I'm gonna ask everybody to sit down. We're ready to get started.
No, the first one is academic affairs.
All right, we'll call the meeting back to order. And Regent Ridley, you have business on the academic affairs.
Yeah, I'm a tiny. I'm gonna have fun with this.
Don't get it for a minute. Thank you, Chairman Bale, and thank you, board. Today we have we have 5 consent agendas on our action items, and so I'll ask the board: are there any items on the consent agenda that we need to pull off at someone's request?
These are committees.
committee.
No, this isn't consent. These are committees.
Oh, I'm sorry. Once again, I'm
That's okay.
always looking at the future. So this is the committee meeting. So we'll have a report.
I would like to cut just to the chase. That
Yeah,
would be fine, too.
Yes, Dr. Lee, please go ahead.
Academic Affairs would like to present 4 certificates for your consideration this morning. I think 1 graduate, 3 undergraduate, a couple of colleges are represented. But they're all examples, I think, of us presenting a kind of packageable credential that targets some specific workforce needs and lets our graduates go forward with a special credential. And some of these will probably also attract some external students to the university because these are fairly unique kinds of credentials. The first one is a local government administration graduate certificate. And Dan Bowden from the Political Science Department, our Master of Public Administration program, is here. And Dan, could you introduce this program just briefly?
Sure. This program would be designed for those individuals who are currently working in or have a desire to work in local government administration. It's a 12-credit graduate certificate, 2 required courses, 2 electives to be selected from a list of restricted electives, geared toward, again, those that are either in career, seeking to advance their career, or pre-career.
And we certainly see this as addressing our constituency as in a very rural part of a very rural state. This is some expertise that we can make available through online courses.
Dr. Lee, would you mind refreshing, and I'm sorry to catch you off guard on this, but would you mind refreshing the board's recollection of why it is significant? It is significantly important to have these certificates at this university in relationship to its job creation and its relationship. You touched on it about the administration and so forth for local governments, but could you expand on that a little bit to show us why this is a good idea?
Well, I think there are several things here. One is certificates by their nature are typically 12 to 15 hours. So it's a credential that's small, and for folks who have demands on their time, it's something that they can get their hands around pretty quickly. Not all of these are online, but many of them are online, and therefore fully available to working professionals in the field. They're also stackable, for example, in this particular one, all 4 of these courses in this particular certificate will count toward completing a Master's of Public Administration. So part of what we're trying to do here is to give students an easy way to come into the program, get something quickly that they can take away of value, but there's also something beyond that, and not very far beyond that, that they can reach toward that would give them a degree. And in particular, in all these areas, well, just to focus on the local government one, obviously all around this region, there are lots of local governments where employees want more expertise. And this certificate becomes a way of opening
opening up the university's expertise to a really broad constituency that use of it. So certificates in a lot of ways, I think, serve the university very well, but also serve the people we're trying to work with very well.
I'd like to point out also, I think Klaus mentioned about the comparative analysis on value. These are the type of programs that do make us stand out and why our value is much better than what we receive. It's not about $1 always. It's about how much you leave here. If you look at this list of coursework, required coursework and selected, these would make a great citizen for our Commonwealth or a great employee for a county government or a city government, yes, or an elected official. Yes. So the value that we're adding with these certificates, and thank you for your narrative, because it kind of puts us back to where we are. It puts us back to what academics are about. Yes, developing students and educating our citizens. Thank you very much. So that's action item AA1.
Yes, sure.
Yes.
If your committee doesn't have it, can I ask a question?
Keep us on server.
Dr. Lee, who all is encompassed in the target of those people who would participate in this program? By that, I mean, not just young people coming up, but existing local government people.
Oh, absolutely.
And is there a continuing education requirement to this?
Not that I know of.
I mean, not a continuing education requirement. Can it be utilized in that regard? Now, let me tell you why I'm asking that question. Local governments, especially elected officials, have a continuing education requirement. And a lot of times CAECO and League of Cities and those organizations actually provide those opportunities. And I was just wondering if this could be somehow implemented into that and could enhance the value that we provide the Commonwealth.
So I've spoken both to Kentucky League of Cities and KCCMA and ICMA, the International City County Management Association. As far as continuing education, we see this as an on-ramp for students who may be interested in the NPA in the future, seeking more training. Maybe they're intimidated by graduate work. This could be an opportunity to step into that. As far as continuing education, though, that we don't see this as competing with what Kentucky League of Cities is already doing as far as that. So it would be more enhancing that those training opportunities that the Kentucky League of Cities offers, rather than a supplement, rather than to supplant that.
Well, let me get into why I directed that question. If you go into a lot of the counties, the western part of the Commonwealth is a good example of it, as is the eastern part. And what you see is a lot of people that are in the Treasury's position. You see magistrates and commissioners. You see, in some cases, judge executives. And a lot of these people just don't have the tools that a program like this could provide. So my thought process is, can we make this program available to those people who are already in those positions to enhance their talents?
And that would be one of the goals.
CAECO and the League of Cities will do that sort of thing. You to a certain degree, won't provide a certificate, right?
And that would be the one of the target markets, is those individuals that are currently serving in local government who are seeking opportunities to improve their professionalism.
Well, I would encourage if you can. Are there other programs in the state?
There are none in the state.
Then this is a perfect opportunity for us to go talk to the CAECO and the League of Cities. Perfect opportunity, because we can provide them. You know, they'll give us our target population to a certain degree. I mean, I'm not talking about just students coming in, which is, I understand, the program is geared for, but there's another market area out there that we could tap on.
But I think you're telling us too that there's a promotional opportunity here that we need to think about.
Right. I'm sorry.
How do we make sure that potential folks who might potentially be interested in this are aware of it? And that's a very appropriate challenge to us, and we will respond to that. Yeah. I do think you're right. There's a considerable potential audience for this.
Well, again, I'm thinking of the big picture that it would be a revenue generator.
Yeah, that's
a profit center. I mean, there's a whole, Kaplan does nothing but do continuing education that goes to various different professions, and you do it online. And if this is something that's not being provided in the state, Western Kentucky University could be the continuing education for governmental relations. So I just see this as a much bigger than a wonderful program. It actually could be converted into more of a economic engine.
Well, and Ann just mentioned our new budget model that we're in the process of developing, which encourages deans to be more entrepreneurial.
Exactly.
And this is something that fit very well.
And the tools are there. Exactly.
Well, I would encourage you to contact people like the executive director, Brian Keiko, and I'm not sure who the director of League of Cities is, but you know, those people, just let them know we got this. We will pursue that.
Thank you very much.
Regent.
Yeah, so
comment,
please.
And following from what Provost Lee just said on, you know, I get excited when I see programs like this because I see the value in those, and they are entrepreneurial, and you know, if we're the only one in the state doing this, when we talk about, you know, costs of going to an education, but these are the kind of things that make us stand out. These make us different. And coming from a rural area, myself growing up, you know, and this being online, I really see the value in that, and can see people that want to take opportunity for something like this. So I commend them, you know, for doing this and coming up with this, and I hope to see lots more of these. So, thank you.
Please continue. So are we finished with the delayed one? Anyone want to speak to that topic? Anyone? Mr. President? No? Okay.
Do we need to act on this, or do we act?
I would, given committees, I would vote on each one separately.
Each one separately?
You could do it either way.
I beg your pardon?
You could do it either way.
I'd rather
It's up
wait.
to you.
I'd like to wait till the
Up to you.
Let's move along.
Our next certificate to consider is an undergraduate certificate in deaf studies, and Gene Strungus, the department head of that department, is here to talk about Regents.
Hello, my name is Daniel Sturgis. I'm the department head in communication sciences and disorders. I'm presenting the Deaf Studies undergraduate certificate for your approval. The certificate is 15 hours and can be completed by a non-degree seeking student from the community or by an undergraduate enrolled at WKU. It is estimated that 694,000 Kentuckians are affected by deafness and hard of hearing, which is more common in rural areas among males and older adults. No other university in Kentucky offers a certificate in deaf studies. The certificate will improve employment opportunities and advancement for health and education fields. The certificate requires no additional resources and will be taught by current faculty and instructors. Thank you.
Point of order, I've been coached by my fellow colleagues that we probably would be more appropriate if we act on each one of these items individually so that if there's an objection to one, the others can pass. So
good.
You can call me down.
I
you
didn't
don't
say,
have to. You
I didn't, it's your chair.
Right, right. Yeah, I know, but I need help.
You're very appropriate.
The most important point is that if anyone has something to say or question, they have the opportunity to have that question.
That's right. Exactly. So let's, if you don't mind, thank you very much for your presentation. I might ask you to recap that in a second. Let's go back to action item. No. This is, hey, governing by chaos is appropriate. Action item 881. So if I could have a motion to approve the first one that we discussed, and that is the local government administrative graduate certificate to approve the establishment of the certificate in local government administration. So move in a second. Klaus, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. And the motion of the committee passes. Now we're ready for 882. And if you don't mind recap once again, I think our focus was off.
So again, I'm presenting the Deaf Studies undergraduate certificate, which will be available for undergraduates at WKU and also for people in the community and education and health fields. It will be 15 credits and requires no additional resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And once again, I think it's a certificate that speaks to a need in the broader community. It's again, a small certificate, readily accessible on campus and off campus. It's an important program for us to establish.
And once again, we notice on our list, it is recommended by our president. This has gone through the appropriate channels. And so the motion we will put on the floor and then discuss if necessary for the committee members. Approval to establish an undergraduate certificate in depth studies. Do I hear so moved?
So moved.
So moved, seconded. Second by David. Any more comments, questions?
Wait. Second by Steve.
David, oh, you're not on the committee. So let's have another one.
It was Stephen.
Steve,
Yeah.
you're on the committee.
Yes.
Is that, are you seconding the motion?
Yes.
Yeah, very good. My gracious. This is more complicated than I thought. So we have a second to the motion. Are there any more of the committee members? Any discussions? And then we'll open up the board. Sounds like we have full support. Any board members have any? So the committee will vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And we'll move to AA3 and try to get through this very rapidly.
And the certificate is also from the College of Health and Human Services. This is Early Childhood Education Director's undergraduate certificate that prepares folks to direct child care centers. And Travis Wilson from the Department of Applied Human Sciences is here to talk about it.
Well, this is kind of an odd certificate. It's not really directed for our existing students. It's students that already take courses that are non-degree seeking. And so we're looking at this as a program, and the director's certificate is required at the state board level for daycare systems. So anybody that is, there's 1 through 4 in that, in the top level where the state requires you to have these 4 courses as a credential. And that is also to receive public funding for those daycares. So what we're doing is basically saying we already offer these 4 courses, let's make it a certificate. Then we will get credit for these non-degree seeking students. They will now be seeking a certificate, and it works out quite well. And we'll also be, and it's an online program. It has been online since it was created, these courses. So we'll be able to gather students from other states, not just the state.
In layman's terms, would you consider this a job-ready type program that someone who's already or wants to expand their knowledge in those areas for these certificates?
It is to increase the credentials to move up
in their
system. And to bring those daycares, give them some kind of credential to say, I want to be not a level 1, level 2, level 3. We want to be at the highest level of the daycare world.
And it does have potential considerably beyond Bowling Green, Warren County, considerably beyond the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
But we will be the only one in the state that has this certificate. Everybody else, there's 9 other schools actually, I think that have been reduced down to 7 that offer these courses, and we will be the only one that provides a non-state credential, a university credential.
I'd just like to add, my mother started First Baptist Church Daycare in around 1990 and studied early childhood education along with that and took courses. So very familiar with the need for this and the impact. And again, it's one of those with the economic impact across the state. Early childhood education is very valuable, and the need for quality daycares. And I'd just say First Baptist Church Daycare is still going strong. But, it is important, and it's important to have, skilled and educated people who are running these facilities. And so I think it's a great idea.
Any other comments? Board, I ask for a motion, and we can further discuss this. Approval to establish the undergraduate certificate, the Early Childhood Education Director.
So moved.
So moved, and second. Second. Any more discussion? Talon, thank you very much for mentioning your mom. My mother also, at 97, still around, was a first adopter of a kindergarten. And so I understand this quite well, since I graduated 5 times from the kindergarten. It was in our home. I couldn't help it. But this is extremely, and again, it's very creative for a department to look outside of what they're doing day to day to figure out how they can add value to an existing program and no increase in budgetary area. And again, all about the students, all about our results, and that's what we're about. Any other comments? So I'd like to vote on the motion. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That moves forward. AA4.
The final certificate for this morning is User Experience Undergraduate Certificate. And to talk about that, we have Cliff Shaluda from Advertising and Helen Stark, who's the Director of the Department, Head of the Department of Communication.
Well, thanks, David. Good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to tell you about the UX certificate we have in mind. As a quick overview, I'd maybe talk about technology a little bit, because I'm sure everybody's familiar with technology or UX is people involved in the field. But when you look at technology, typically it's in 3 stages. The first stage is where it's available and the early adopters use it. The second stage is where companies load up features and then become kind of cumbersome. For those of a certain age, you might remember the VCR blinking light. You know, it could do a lot of things, but we weren't sure what it was. Cell phones are a pretty good example of that too. The third stage is where we have the features, but the functions are really transparent. Consumers really buy the experience. And the iPhone would be an example of that. Most people don't know everything an iPhone does, but they appreciate the experience. Well, the same things happened with the internet. Early on, or 90s really, having an internet website was enough. These days, the focus is on the experience that you have on the internet, when you're on mobile, on your phone, on your home computer, or even TV these days. So user experience is really the discipline of understanding what consumers want when they come to a website or a mobile app or some other type of computer technology and what they expect from it. So it has a research piece, it has a design piece, and it has a testing piece, which is kind of higher level. So there's a lot of different schools, universities, UK's one, they call it human factors in this state, but it's a graduate program. It's actually organized by the psychology department, which is interesting. You have some other smaller schools that are doing more focused certificates, like Aussie in Nashville has a certificate. So this would be the only certificate in UX in Kentucky. These courses were in the original advertising program, which was in the School of Journalism and Broadcasting, which is now in the Department of Communication. So it's a rebundling of those classes of 15 hours. It would be the advantage, and I guess that's your main interest, I'm sure. The advantage is that it would reach students beyond ad majors, and that was kind of a limiting factor. People would see advertising, oh, I don't really want to do that, but I'm interested in UX. This goes beyond that. So this would appeal to students here at Western that are in graphic design in the art department, computer science, even the marketing CIT program could see some value probably in this as well. And so I think most of the pertinent information as far as employment, workforce ready, those things are in the proposal, but I'm happy to ask questions. And Dr. Helen Stark is here, Department Head for COM, to ask any or answer any other questions you might have on it. So fully loaded and ready.
So let's put a motion before the board and then we'll discuss. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Second. All right. Now we can discuss. Yes, please.
I have a question. So there's a significant overlap, as far as I can tell, with other courses programs which already exist within the university. And so I was wondering, if it would have been better to have this somewhat interdisciplinary. So let me tell you what I'm talking about. There's a CS course in web programming, there's a CS course in XML, there's CIT courses in web systems development. And this is essentially similar. I mean, yes, the user experience is not in the foreground there, but you have some programming to be taught within this certificate.
Right.
And so I thought the program would be stronger if under the optional courses, there would be courses from different departments which have similar content.
And I think you make a great point. The original courses we designed, which were approved in the ad program, I actually started in fall of 2015. So we've been teaching these classes, and those discussions with CS and marketing and all of those discussions occurred and were approved through the various committees, University Curriculum Committee on that. So those are classes we've already been teaching. Kids are in these classes. This is something we already own. But the great thing about the certificate is it's an add-on, and CS has expressed some interest in looking at this particular discipline of UX along with graphic design in the art department. So I really see it more as a collaborative thing now, because it's not stuff just in this ad major as it was. And it's really, I mean, honestly, could be a separate thing from COM in a sense. So it would be available to any other program, but it looks at just this user experience. So I don't see it as a redundancy as much as a collaborative addition, much like you might see at UK with human factors, because they're teaching some of the same stuff too. But it's not just design, right? It is the research on the human factors of what someone looks for and what they expect in that experience. And for those that, use the internet at all, you recognize it when you go to a website and it doesn't work as you expect, or you click a button and it doesn't do that. It's frustrating. So these are the things that we research, what consumers expect. We then test them through modeling, and then actually ultimately end up at the design. So what you mentioned, I agree in the sense there should be collaboration, and we've had conversations. And I don't know if you want to speak more to that or not. But.
Well, just very briefly. Members of the department have met with folks from computer sciences. Mustafa Atitsi is in charge of computer sciences, and also Key Lee, one of the professors. And we had a conversation, and it became very clear that the one course in coding is a different kind of approach than they do in computer sciences. It's not based on algorithms, and it's not based on a mathematical understanding of programming and coding. It's a verbal logic approach. And it is, you might think of it as coding for programmers or coding for non-programmers, or you might think of it as baby coding is another possibility, or coding for dummies possible. Because the idea is to have one course that allows people who are learning how to do and present excellent experience on digital product, how to talk to the person who's looking behind the screen. We're training the person who's making that screen experience clean, clear, and beautiful. And they need to be able to have a conversation with the people who are programming the behind the screen experience, and that one little course does kind of get at it. I think Cliff used the word supplement. I would say complement. I think that this certificate is good for folks who are already out in the world doing this kind of work and want to have up-to-date education in it. And I think it's a complement for many different programs within the university.
Please feel free to correct me on saying this, but as you made that wonderful description of why this is a good connection, would you say that this is connecting art and science?
Well, I think
I would say so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, our primary interest market there, the graphic designers.
Your description to me as a layperson in this entire area is that how does the mathematic and computer programming analogy to be able to communicate between. Once again, that's the type of student we're trying to do. It's not all about what did I get online, how did I communicate with someone, how can I make my job better, how can I make the result of the product better. So once again, adding value. So it is making a connection.
I think you definitely caught the vision.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, they think in pictures, and this is really about the visual aspect of what we see on the movie. Absolutely.
Or anyone? Thank you very much. Great descriptions. So with the committee, I'd like to ask for a vote. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. And the motion passes. The bell hasn't gone off, so we will continue. And our last item is emeritus appointment.
We have two emeriti appointments that we'd like to recommend this morning. Unfortunately, neither one of them can be with us this morning. But the first is Dr. Ellen Bonaguro, who is also from the Department of Communication. One of Ellen's prime contributions to the Department of Communication was moving the department in the direction of health communication. She did some very important early work, did some early classes that opened up a whole new area for that department, that program to be able to offer. She is probably better known across campus as the head of ARC, Academic Advising and Retention Center. She was director for a while. She was associate dean for a while. But Ellen was, is a very creative person who has brought some fresh ideas and some exciting new dimensions to our communication department and to our advising work across campus for a long time. Brian Coots is recently retired. I guess he's retired next week from the headship of the Library of Public Services. I believe he was department head there for 27 years. He's published extensively. He's also been very active in terms of presentations in the community. But Brian's been a stalwart of our library operations for a long time. And I'm delighted to recommend him as well for emeritus status.
Roll Lee. So the motion is for us. No. Could we have a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Second. Second. Once again, those in favor of this, any questions, any comments? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. And the motion passes.
Thank you all very much.
Roll asleep. Thank you very much. I don't know if this is an opportunity to say thank you for your service. I don't know. We're on the heels of the swan song.
Well, there may be another chorus to my swan song, but
yes,
I'm retiring a week from tomorrow.
Yes, I was.
But I will be around in July.
Yes, I knew that.
Arrives on August 1st. But this is probably my last time in school. Right. Yes.
I may not be able to say thank you very much. I acknowledge your wonderful participation in this transition, and I'm sure Dr. Tony shares that, and there will be other opportunities for us to say thank you. But publicly, we all appreciate what you've done. Thank you.
The university has been very generous in taking in my leaving, and I appreciate that very much. It has meant a great deal to me, and I've been certainly touched, but even a little bit surprised by some of the expressions that folks have made to me. But it's certainly bittersweet. And 43 years here is a long time, but it's been a long time because I absolutely love this institution. It's been at the core of my adult life, and I appreciate that very much. But as I'm going out the door, one person I'll invite in is Corinne Murphy. I'm very excited that we have a new Dean of the College of Education and Behavioral Sciences. Yes. She is at Westchester University. I think you all got materials about her earlier this week. But this has been a long search, but I think Corinne is just the right person for this job, and I think you're going to enjoy the chance to get acquainted with her and to celebrate her work.
Thank you for that as well. Yes, please.
First of all, I just want to ask you a question or make a request if I could. But first of all, I want to say the value that this university is immeasurable. Second thing I want to ask is, I understand you're going to be updating and writing the history or continuing the history of this university. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Will you remember us kindly, please?
I can remember you no other way. I'm very confident that y'all will be remembered kindly.
Selective memory, thank you very much.
Let me say, I hope you remember us honestly. Maybe that'd be kind of, I don't know. But David fascinated me since the days my wife was on this board now over 20 years ago, and the guy has not aged.
He looks taller too.
David really has lent a steadying hand to the organization over the last couple of years. And as Gil said, I think contributions would be hard to quantitate. He's done a magnificent job. We all thank you very much and look forward to seeing your face around and reading your history.
Looking forward to reading that one too. For sure. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Would you like for me to introduce Mac and Jeannie?
I wish you would. No, would you please? Please.
As you all know, one of the hallmarks of this university is a really incredible School of Journalism and Broadcasting. And there is associated with that a first competition that's frequently referred to as the Pulitzer Prizes of college journalism. And frankly, we have absolutely dominated that for a quarter of a century. And Regent Ridley thought it might be good if you all kind of got an update about this, a bit of a summary of it, particularly since we won the whole shebang this year. So we've asked Mac McCarroll from the journalism side and Jeannie Smith from the photojournalism side to talk a little bit about this. So Mac and Jeannie,
please come forward. And thank you so much.
Thanks, David. I'm going to go first. I'm Professor Mac McCarroll. I'm a coordinator for the writing reporting unit in the School of Journalism and Broadcasting. I'm going to breeze through this and then I'll pass it on to Jeannie, who's going to talk about the future, which is far more important than the past, except for historians. And if you remember me at all in history, it will be a great honor. And I'm going to go pretty quickly because I know you're short on time. So Dr. Bales.
No, not for this. Not for this.
You want to get a gesture under your timer, you can crank it up.
No. This is the important, this is where the rubber meets the road.
Okay, so the Hearst Journalism Awards, go ahead, please. Next, yeah. Jonathan Adams created this great poster, which Jeannie will talk about in a little bit, recognizes the students who all won awards in Hearst this year. The awards are only for students in accredited journalism programs, which are about 105. So let's forge ahead. The categories for each competition in the writing, there are 4 or 5. Photojournalism has 3 competitions. There's a couple for radio, television, and the multimedia competition just started 7 years ago. That was an add-on. So those are the formats that that our students compete in. You're allowed 2 entries per category, so it's limited to the 2 best entries per category. They have to come from different students. The students have to be majors. The only exception to that is in the multimedia competition, they do allow minors to participate on multimedia teams, not on the individual competitions. First place this year in photojournalism, $10,000 award to the school. First place in multimedia was a $10,000 award to the School of Journalism. And we'll receive an award of $25,000 for finishing first overall among all the schools who competed. And individual students' scholarships in those individual competitions totaled $30,000. This is the 9th year that we finished in the top 5. You can see that our performance, as David mentioned, throughout the years has been really consistent. Back to back in 2001 and 2000 and 2001, that is not an easy thing to do. You know, with sports polls and rankings and lists, the first question that comes from leadership is, what are you going to do for us next year? We're going to try our best to repeat. We, like all units on campus, have taken some pretty big hits in the past year in terms of staff and budget. But we have some really good faculty members, and better than that, we have some really good students. So hopefully we'll be able to finish first again next year. It will be tough. In the multimedia competition, since it was created, we've won it every year. And I think this is important because a decision was made by the school back in 2007 to get out in front of multimedia. My major changed its curriculum significantly. Photo made a shift from film to digital. Painful for some people, but it's all worked out very well. The other thing that I want to say about the multimedia competition is that it involves collaboration between students from the different majors in the school. So when you look at those winning teams, you're going to see photojournalism students. You're going to see journalism majors who have done the narrative news writing. You're going to see some photo majors who have done some wonderful narrative news writing. Some of them are equally adept at writing as they are at visual presentation. So I like the idea that it's collaborative. 24 times, we're losing the bottom of this, but photo has won the individual competition 24 out of 29 years. And that's a pretty strong record. When I came to Western in 2005, during my interview, one of the questions that I was asked are, what do you want to do here? You know, what are your goals for the major in the school? And I said, I want to overhaul the curriculum, and I've done that with the help of my faculty in the school. I wanted to create a minor in the writing discipline, which we have done. And then my third goal was that I wanted people to talk about the writing major as much as they talk about the photo major. At best ambitious, at worst folly. But this year, the writing competition, overall, we finished 5th, which is the highest year since I've been here. And I'm hoping that we can continue that. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize Professor Amanda Crawford, who has really been solely responsible for developing some wonderful student reporters in the upper division classes where most of this work comes from. Unfortunately, she's leaving. take a job at the University of Connecticut. So she'll be tough to replace, but we'll get it done, I guess. So this is the top 10 schools. I love to tell my homies from Illinois that Northwestern's Medill School is noticeably absent. I hope I'm not insulting anyone in the room. Hear a lot about Medill, but they didn't even make the top 10 this year. And you can see some of the quality schools that we're competing against, legacy institutions like the University of Missouri and Indiana, Syracuse. Some of you know that Arizona State received a bundle of money, 50+ million from Gannett to rebuild their School of Journalism and Communications in downtown Phoenix. They have a lot of bells and whistles, but our students are competitive with all of these schools. And there's some notable schools that are not on that list beyond Northwestern, who I love to pick on when we talk about schools of journalism. I don't want to
putting that back up for a moment.
Yeah, that's fine.
Would you mind putting that on the front page of the Courier Journal?
You know, we just had a discussion about budget. We've had a discussion about value. I want you to look at those schools right there.
Yeah,
Those are not cheap places to go to school.
And you know, I meet a lot with parents with prospective students. I've had about 10 that have come in through the spring, and I have a couple more this summer. And one of the questions I routinely ask them is, where else are you looking? And routinely, Missouri and Indiana are on the list. So it's nice to be able to tell them, well, those are great schools, but I think we do okay as well. And then I wander them down and show them our Pulitzer wall, and then they're pretty much sold on it.
Truly a value-added proposition.
For sure.
No doubt.
Very quickly, the Society of Professional Journalists, a national journalism organization, it's the largest national journalism organization. They also have a student competition. The organization is divided into regions. We compete in Region 5, some pretty good schools in Illinois, Kentucky, and Indiana. And we did very well in that competition this year. So at the regional, next please. At the regional competition, we had finalists for national awards in multimedia. The independent online student magazine, Red, is an important one. We created that specifically to publish student work that was produced in our upper division classes. A lot of our Hearst entries come from the Red site because Hearst requires that those entries be accessible to the public. So it also helps our students in the major build their portfolios, which is extremely important. We're a finalist in editorial writing. Chuck Clark is here. That was the Herald Editorial Board. And also in radio news and the Best Student Magazine category. And this was at the regional level. In the national competition, where the regional first place winners compete against the other 11 regions, we had several first places in all our majors were represented. David was involved in the White House and the press Fleischer Green program, which won an award. So beyond Hearst, we're doing pretty well otherwise. And these were our national finalists: Nicole Ayers, Abby Potter, Kelsey Hobbs, and Abby Potter not only in photo but also in multimedia. Abby graduated in May. I believe Kelsey might be still around. Nicole is in graduate school in Denmark, International Communications. She's also won several national awards for her reporting in that area. And film, last but not least. So this program is only completing its 4th year. We have about 160 majors, which is great. And they won their first major award. We just got word of that a couple weeks ago. So the school's hitting well on all cylinders, and we hope it can continue to do that. More important, Jeannie wants to talk about going forward just briefly.
So we're going to show you a couple of images from the winning student portfolios in photojournalism, just to give you a little visual taste of what won this year. This is a picture by Siobhan Altman, who's on an internship as we speak, and Nick Wagner was was a graduate last year, but was still eligible to enter. I'm allowed to scroll. There we go. Just to give you a news and sports hit there a little bit, you can just see the quality of the work that our students are producing. If you go to wkupj.com, you can see a lot of the work, but just for brevity, I wanted to at least show you a couple of images. So where do we go from here? Well, I'll just like to mention real quick that this is kind of an emotional time for me. Personally, I was a photojournalism major in this program, and Tamara Vaninsky and I were the first 2 students to help WKU win the first photojournalism intercollegiate award. So to me, to be standing in front of you guys today is a proud moment because I feel like it's kind of come full circle. Our students leave these wins and go on with building their confidence to apply for Fulbrights, internships like at the LA Times, New York Times, where they end up because this award catapults them into even more prestigious environments. So it's a great boost to the students' confidence. But what it allows us to do as a university is go out and recruit on a very confident level. This fall in November, Mac and I will attend the National High School Journalism Conference that draws about 5,000 students from high schools all over the country that are interested in being photojournalists, journalists, broadcast, film. And our table will be sitting amongst those tables of colleges that you saw on that list, but we're the only ones that are going to get to say we're national champions. So I'm very proud. You can tell I'm a little bit of a competitive person. I'm very proud of that. So we hope that what this will do is continue through recruiting efforts to bring in these top quality students. Because we can work our tails off every day and cultivate these students, but we need the students to begin with that want to be here and work hard. And so that's what we want to continue to bring in through these efforts and these wins. It basically becomes a cycle. And so we're very, very proud of our wins, but we're greedy. We want more. So we'll be doing a lot of recruiting efforts based on these numbers off these wins to bring in more students to continue these efforts. So, any questions for Mike and I? Well, thank you very much.
I'm just about speechless, and really it is such a jewel in our crown. But I want to point out throughout this strategic planning process we've been going through, one of the things that is being emphasized is that we have to take care of those jewels, and so. We want this story to go on, and obviously lots of pulls and tugs everywhere, but I think President Caboni agrees that programs like this, we've just got to support, and what y'all done is magnificent.
Dr. Ridley, I want to thank you for the invite. Dr. Bell, to your point, I think sometimes when you put everything in one place, it has a little more impact than it's kind of spread out over a quarter of a century. I'm not a WKU grad, but I've known about this program for a long time and served with the former coordinator for the journalism majors, Jim Highland, who was here for many, many years. I know a lot of you know Jim, and served on a board with him for several years. And every meeting he sat next to me and just gave me an earful of Western Kentucky to the point where I wanted to kill him. But when Western Kentucky came calling to me and said, "Hey, you might want to, I want to take a look at us for this position," I think I was there the next week. So it's been a great time for me here. I've seen some great students go through the program. A little bit troubled right now, like everyone is, about how we're going to navigate the future. But I think the dedicated faculty and like Chief said, recruiting really good students, we really get some good ones. I expect we're going to hang around on most of this for a long time. We appreciate whatever support we can get from the university.
I have to give a quick shout out to Tim Brokerbone and Jonathan Adams in particular, who that 7 year in a row multimedia win is not just a fluke. That's with a lot of hard effort, particularly from Tim Brokerbone, who I think is a genius on our faculty and really cultivates these talents out of these students. So I did want to make sure I have a shout out to them. So we will continue with your support to
Notice on that quote wall, we've left a lot of space.
Yes.
Expect more.
Thank you all very much.
One more question. Can you tell us roughly what's the size of your majors in these various programs?
Ooh, in photo, we're about at 80 to 100, give or take, right now. Broadcast is closer to 150.
They're both, they're higher than that. Broadcasting
150 to 200. Writing.
The writing major and minor combined are about 150, 160. That number's been pretty steady since I've been here. Took a little dip a couple of years ago, but Carol Alicia, our departmental advisor, has told me that going through tops, our numbers are up. So we're pretty happy about that.
And film is ever growing there between 75 and 100. Thank you.
The film program has been.
They've been growing.
They've been growing, and they've been a great supplement to the school because we had a 4-year window or so where our enrollment did pretty sharply. And I can tell you that under Robert Deidel's leadership as interim director, he'll be taking on his second year starting the new academic year. We as a faculty, and I have to admit, I've been nagging constantly about this. We are really focusing on recruiting in the coming year. We have a good product to sell, and I think sometimes we assume that people know about it. We can't. We got to get out there and get face to face with these students and get them into our program because they'll have great careers regardless. I think when I meet with parents, I don't sell journalism as much as I sell just a great professional communication skill set that they can do anything with. Anything. I love them all to go into news, but I'm a little naive, but I'm not naive enough to believe that that's going to happen. The ones that do well, but our graduates are all doing great in a variety of fields in professional communication and even independently working for themselves.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just a great presentation. Well, Mr. Chairman, that's a wonderful high note, and I also would like to take a moment to say, yes, we just celebrated wonderful things from the students, but a great example of two wonderful faculty members. And Chuck Clark, thank you very much for your leadership. And we get to see here only the surface of what's happening because this department in particular, the numbers are important. But in our times now, a program like this not only develops good citizens, it's responsible people who will help us with a free press. That's extremely important. Thank you. Thank you very much for your leadership. Mr. Chairman, that's the academic committee.
All right. Thank you.
Great. Gil.
Go back to me.
Follow up.
I can't. I'm not scared. We got 3 action items: approval of personnel actions, which is pretty routine; approval of the 2018-19 audit plan, assessment audit, and approval of an amendment to the internal audit charter. So we will start. We'll start with approval of personnel actions and motion for approval of personnel actions, which was presented in your package.
So moved.
Motion. Second by Jason. And we'll open it up. And
no comments.
Okay.
Can answer questions.
Yeah, this is pretty standard stuff that was submitted in detail in your packets. Anybody have any questions on committee? Anybody else? All right, then I will call for all those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Number 2, approval of the 2018-19 audit plan and attached. Quick, I didn't look at it. The audit plan is attached, that Jennifer's put together, so I will again entertain the motion for approval of the audit plan for 18-19.
So moved. Second.
Sorry, who's it? Okay, David. I have a motion and second, and Jennifer, anything you want to add?
I'll just point out a couple of things. The first three that are on there, just to make sure that you notice, those are from this current year, so we're rolling this forward. We didn't get a chance to get to those, and we want to make sure we get to those because they are related to the prior year risk assessment. And not anything else really, unless there's questions about the management request. We've had two of those, and we've made sure that we've made time for those. One's a compliance audit, and one is an operational review. Risk assessment projects. This is the first time we'll be getting into really what I would maybe call a department audit, more or less for the College of Health and Human Services. And you can read the project objective based on just inherent risk when you're transitioning leadership. That's the only reason it's on there. We want to go in and see what kind of financial activities they're doing, procurement card assessment at that point for them, travel vouchers, things like that, so that when we get moving forward with the new leadership, that we'll be ready and make sure that they're in compliance with university policies and procedures. And I state how we chose that one. We know that there's more than one college that's going through that transition, and it's basically a simple, they have the largest dollar amount in expenditures. So that's why we picked that one and for no other reason. And then the other one on there is the revenue stream analysis. Basically a trend analysis to look at different revenues that are coming into the university, excluding the tuition and state appropriations and any grants that are coming in. We want to look at those other things that are coming in, determine what kind of factors we want to look at and the changes within those revenue streams, and follow that stream to whatever bank account it's hitting, and do an analysis on that.
Question about that. Yeah. Is that all, that's the business units then that are doing, receiving of services, services that are being rendered for a fee? That's what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jeffrey, do you have any capacity to take on anything else?
No.
I just wondered if something popped up.
We have some time on the audit plan for ad hoc requests. We usually have some spots that we leave open for things like that come up. So yes. And one other, this isn't set in stone, and we know that whenever you guys approve it, if something major changes or that we need to add, I bring that to your attention and we make sure that happens.
Is Grant Thornton doing anything? They're in a project now.
Grant Thornton is not doing anything right
now. I have a question. That what Freddie's talking about, is that, do we have to approve that as an opportunity, or hiring Grant Thornton or something over and above? Is that something we have to do now, or we do it at the moment?
I thought Grant Thornton was helping you in.
They have in the past with more IT projects, and we don't have, well, we have the sensitive data management, and it's more of a review than an audit, so we feel comfortable that we can go forward with that without having to turn it down.
But the discussion we had last meeting about the outside income streams, wasn't Grant Thornton helping you with that?
Crow Horowitz is.
Crow Horowitz.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, wrong name. So they're involved.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So they're still involved with that.
Yes.
Is that the only project? Outside?
Yes.
No, that's actually, I thought I knew where Freddie was going.
Oh,
that's fine. Thank you for clearing that up.
Any other questions? I'm sorry, Pamela.
Oh, as I was going through here, and it's just a comment more than a question, but there's a couple things on here about the reduction in the workforce impacts reputation as a stable employer, and the impacts of the university budget reduction. And again, just reiterate, there's some things on here about lack of training in several areas, and transitioning, the leadership transitions. We've lost staff, we've lost people who were knowledgeable and skilled in their areas then there will be issues going forward. There will be changes, there will be mistakes, there'll be things that we won't be able to handle as timely as we used to. Not that people aren't trying and don't care, but those definitely have an impact, as you point out in here, on what's going on. And but just keep that in mind as we go forward, that there are fewer people trying to do those jobs, and it does have an impact.
Right, and well, we try to come in and more or less add value and add a different look and a different way to do things if we need to, because of the impact that may have on our processes. We try to help with that.
That speaks in part to what Dr. Caboni was referring to with the other sacrifices that are being made to balance the $27 million hole.
May I say something?
Yes.
This is something to note. Freddie, their ad hoc request, she's allotted 260, Jennifer's allotted 265 hours for anything that comes up that may need review. And I'd like to ask a question. Do you all have grievance committees for faculty and staff?
For faculty, I believe we do. I don't know that side of it very well.
Do we have it for staff? Grievance committee. I mean, I would look down and saw the finance administrative and university termination procedures. I just kind of popped up in my head was whether there was a grievance committee either for faculty or staff.
That I don't know for sure, which is when we do this project, we'll get into that part to see how that works.
Okay, so maybe I was a little ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further?
Also, I'm sorry, I'm assuming that College of Health and Human Services, we've had 2 deans in the last 5 years. John Butler retired, and then we had Neil came. So that would make sense to even have an audit at that point in time if you've had 2 changes in a relatively small amount of time.
Anything further? Hearing nothing, then all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. The last item is the approval of an amendment to the internal audit charter. Let me comment on this. This was something, President Caboni, that came up in the Budget Council's recommendations. We tabled it for further analysis and study. Several members of the board have expressed a support for this, and so I think this was the appropriate time to kind of put it on, just to say that. But I will start, as I did before, with a motion to approve the audit charter. So the motion is second. Now discussion. Jennifer, you have anything you want to? President Caboni.
Thank you, Regent Johnson. The Budget Council made a recommendation in February that we take a look at this as an institution to ensure that the internal audit function had autonomy. And I certainly approved that. Didn't want to agree to it then until we took a close look at it. And it was a board function and decision, not necessarily a presidential decision. So thank you for taking a look at it. And I'm supportive and agree with the recommendation. And look forward to shifting responsibility, working my internal audit.
Ready? Anybody else have comments?
I think it's definitely in line with best practices and maturing processes. And excited about the work that Jennifer has done and continues to do and benefit to this university.
And I will note this was not necessarily an easy action item to write. I want to thank Deborah and you for catching some of these things. Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, and all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right, last but not least, I'm going to go on the clock over here. Good. Ticking. All right. Quarterly internal audit report.
Just call me the closer.
You're the closer. Get that going.
So just a quick update on the quarter. We had 2 reports that we issued, both of them which were projected on the audit plan. One was a management request, one was based on the risk assessment. So we'll start with, you should have that on your information item as well. So we'll start with the chill water contract compliance audit. That is a contract between the university and the WKU Student Life Foundation. So back in 2001, Student Life Foundation constructed a chill water plant on campus to be more cost efficient, and they provide chill water for the residence halls and some of the academic buildings as well. And so there's a contract that sets up the terms of the payments and the responsibilities of both parties. And so we looked at that contract to make sure that we were in compliance and with the billings part of that. And out of that, we had 8 recommendations. All of those were considered either medium or low. And we also had about 6 suggestions for process improvements. And as an example, to be more automated with calculations. So we helped set up a spreadsheet that would do that instead of manual calculations. And that's just an example of some of those things. And but both groups were very receptive to the audit and to the suggestions. So I look forward to seeing how that works out. The second project is the Cleary-Menger Act compliance audit. And if you don't know or have not heard of that, the Cleary Act is just a short name for the Jean, I have to read this because it's really long, sorry. The Jean Cleary Disclosure of Campus Security Policy and Campus Crime Statistics Act. Yes. It's part of the 1965 Higher Education Act, so it's a federal law that we do certain reporting of our crime statistics on campus, not just on campus, but whatever their geography definition is of on campus. And the Michael Menger Act is similar to that, except it's a state regulation. And it also includes crime statistics and fire statistics reporting as well. So I wanted to focus on the recommendations. We did have 4 observations that were rated high. And out of that really comes a recommendation that we create some kind of project management team. That is a big project to gather all of those crime statistics and gather all of that data and push that out to two different things. So they report through the Department of Education, all of the statistics, and then they also create an annual security report that goes out to the public. It's available to faculty, staff, students, and even potential students. So there's 2 separate things we were looking at. The Cleary Handbook gives you all kinds of requirements, and we did, through our testing, found some issues with that. So the overall recommendation is to put a project management team together to make sure we have a collaborative group looking at those statistics, making sure that they're accurate, making sure that the annual security report is accurate as well. We had some issues with things that were supposed to be reported in the annual report did not make it into the annual report. We've also recommended, on top of that project management team, that there is a Cleary Handbook Appendix C, which is a checklist that tells you exactly what your report is supposed to have in it. And it's a great breakdown so that you can go line by line to say, yes, I have this in my annual report. So those types of things are what we recommended to make sure that we are in compliance with, especially the Cleary Act, also the Menger Act. Not as many issues with that one that we found more or less with the Cleary Act reporting. And also just a recommendation to train the people that are actually doing the reporting to make sure that we are up to date on the most recent Cleary Act handbook. So that's that in a nutshell. It was a really good report. Also, the people that are involved are very proactive in looking at the recommendations and the action plans, and also the other suggestions that we had that may not have been risk related, but just some process improvements.
Good. I was going to let anybody from the committee do.
I got a question about operationally with the changes to the charter. Are we going to begin seeing these audit reports with action items as they're issued, since it's reporting to us directly?
Right now, I send those to both the chair of the Finance and Budget Committee and the chair of the board as we issue them.
So can we start?
Yeah, they come to me. I send them out to everybody. I send them out to every finance budget person. Yeah, you've even responded to some of them. You've even.
I'll look at it. Okay, that's fine.
But the budget item, the action items come out as a part of, not necessarily what Jennifer does, it could come something from Ann or something like that.
That's what I'm most interested in seeing is the action item. I understand that, I don't get enough information just out of the observation. I want to see the action item. So if you're doing it, that's great. I'll pay more attention, but I would like to see it.
Anybody else?
So, and I just want to point out and it may be good to have more information on some of these. The Clarity and Interact are both very critical to the students at this university and for recruitment and for parents. But if anyone's not aware, Interact was in place because a young man who was killed at Bristol University in a fire. And no information had been sent out that there had been a previous fire set. And that's why, I mean, these are people students who have died on campuses because of lack of information. So I'm always very proud. I do get every year an annual report from our police department on the crime statistics, and that's a good thing. And it's a point for parents recruiting to be able to know how safe the campus is. And we are a safe university, but that's what, enjoying your work on this one in particular this is something that involves the life and safety of everyone on campus, and it's definitely mission critical.
My question was, your report includes crime statistics of what happens on campus. Can you comment on that in any way? Sort of flat, getting better, worse?
Well, I probably can't comment on that because I don't remember the trends, but they do a 3-year report. And that is out there for the public to see. You can go through each location of the university, including the regional campuses, and they're separated out like that. Even the farm is also one, and South Campus. But I don't remember exactly how that looks as far as a trend. So I can give that to you if you need me to.
Just curious.
Yeah, sorry.
Anybody else got any questions from this information item? No more questions. That I believe concludes Finance and Budget Committee meeting.
I will point out that at our retreat, we hope to be able to discuss some of these top categories, risk categories, and spend a little more time talking about that. Jennifer's not going to be able to be with us that day, but I understand maybe. Well, we have this excellent pamphlet here that Jennifer put together on all that. We will talk about that some of the retreat. President Cavoni, you got anything to wrap things up with, or?
No, just looking forward to the strategic plan, which continues to take shape. It is in the hands of the co-chairs who are doing some work and some additional polishing. And then look forward to hopefully on July 20th, resharing that, having the co-chairs as the process come visit with all of you to get some additional feedback and to continue to kind of shape that as we move toward the fall. The other portion of that day, we've talked about having Huron here to discuss the budget model, and those two, separating that out from the retreat if possible, so we can do a really deep dive on those two topics. And so it's particularly the strategic plan is going to set the tone for the next decade of work. So this board, which ultimately will approve it, I want to be sure that before there's the approval, that you all have a chance to shape as well.
And the two co-chairs of that committee, Bruce Schulte and Paul Potter, have really given their heart and soul to that process. It's been long and tough and frustrating at times, but I think they've done a terrific job. My hat's off to both of them. All right. Have a motion for adjournment.
Well, actually, I have something I'd like to say.
All right.
This may be my last meeting at this distinguished body. I've served as 6 years as a board member, and I wanted to take just a moment to refresh everybody's memory how we all get appointed. This process, the first thing, other than it's all governed by Kentucky statutes, and I'm going to give some very quick cliff notes on this. Kentucky statutes say that our university has 3 members of the Board of Regents, and they are staff, the faculty, and the student regent, and each one of those are elected by their peers. And so that's how you get to 3 regents. The other regents, which in our case are 8, for a total of 11 on the board, are first step is to show your interest in serving the Commonwealth of Kentucky by placing your name in consideration at the Board of Commissions, Board of State Commissions, Boards and Commissions. That group is appointed by the governor, and that group is normally consisted of 4 to 6 people representing various judicial regions throughout the state. They look at all these applications of the interest, and then they, as a term for one of the boards expires, they send to the governor 3 people who have an interest. Those 3 people are to meet certain qualifications, again, by statutes, not only gender, race, geographical location, as well as political party and affiliation, but they are the ones that take to the governor and make that request. The term that a regent can serve is 2 6-year terms. And as I had mentioned, I am in the last part of my first 6 years. I did place my name with the nomination committee to be reappointed because I do have an interest in this university. However, as of a moment ago, I have not gotten any calls from the governor's office saying that I've been asked to serve. So, though maybe my application is still in consideration, I want to tell you all that this is my last meeting. What an honor it's been to serve every one of you as a citizen of this Commonwealth. And to stress that even in this meeting, it's been commented that some folks represent a certain group. We don't. When we walk in this door, we act as fiduciaries, that we are acting as a whole. We listen to our constituents, but our actions all have to be for the betterment of what our mission is. And once again, as George eloquently put, we are here for the students and the education of those people that will be better citizens in our Commonwealth and our communities and our nation. And with that, I want to say thank you very much. And hopefully it's not my swan song, but I don't know that I'll have an opportunity to say thank you again. But so, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
We'll be sure you have that opportunity.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Very good. We, as Vice Chair Johnson pointed out, we do not need a motion for adjournment. So, barring any other comments from anyone, stand adjourned.